All right, so the first question in 4.3, lesson 4B, seizures, is describe or define a seizure. And a seizure is the result of abnormal electrical activity in the brain. Is the result of abnormal electrical activity in the brain. That results in the temporary and involuntary body functions. Temporary and involuntary body functions. So that's a pretty long answer. A seizure is the result of abnormal electrical activity in the brain, leading to temporary and involuntary body functions. So number one was a big one. So if you need that more, let me know. Okay. Epilepsy. Epilepsy is a chronic seizure disorder that can be controlled with medication. Epilepsy is a chronic seizure disorder that can be controlled with medication. All right. Any questions on 1 or 2? So epilepsy was a chronic seizure disorder that can be controlled by medication. What are other reasons for electrical activity of the brain to be irregular or for someone to have a seizure? Heat exhaustion, dehydration, pregnancy, trauma, diabetes. I guess that would be a better way of saying this, head trauma. Heat exhaustion, dehydration, head trauma, pregnancy, diabetes. They can all result in seizures. So almost anything, any disruption to the signals in the brain can result in seizures. Does anybody have any questions on 1 through 3? All right, a grand mal seizure, okay? A grand mal seizure is one in which the person loses consciousness and has convulsions. A grand mal seizure is one that the person loses consciousness and has convulsions. Remember, seizures only last a couple minutes. Grand mal seizure, person loses consciousness and has convulsions. So what is a convulsion? Describe convulsions, number 5. Convulsions are involuntary muscle contractions. Involuntary muscle contractions. Any questions on 4 or 5? Or 1 through 5? All right. Number 6, an absence seizure. An absence seizure is one where the person experiences a brief, sudden lapse of consciousness, causing the person to be quiet and stare. An absence seizure is a brief, sudden loss of consciousness, where the person is quiet and stares. And I did have a student who had this before. The probably still does. So an absence seizure is the brief loss of consciousness where the person is quiet and stares. An aura is a feeling or sensation before the onset of a seizure. An aura is a feeling or sensation before the onset of a seizure. All right. Any questions so far? So, list 8 reasons you would call 911 for a person having seizures. A, if they have a history of seizures and it lasts more than 5 minutes. If they have a history of seizures and it lasts more than 5 minutes. B, the person was injured as a result of the seizure. The person was injured as a result of the seizure. C, the person is unresponsive and not breathing, or not breathing well. The person is unresponsive and not breathing, or not breathing well. D, the person is pregnant or has diabetes. The person is pregnant or has diabetes. E, the person is a young child or infant and they have a fever. It's called a febrile seizure. The person is a young child or infant and has a fever. All right. Next, the person is elderly. Person is elderly. This is the person's first seizure, and you should star that in your mind. You should assume, if you don't know the person, that this is their first seizure. Always assume it's their first seizure. And last but not least, the seizure took place in water. The seizure took place in water. Does anybody need me to go through A through G? Okay. Moving on. 9. What should you do for a person having a seizure? Protect their head. Oh, I'm sorry. What should you not do for a person to have a seizure? Do not try to hold them down. Do not try to put anything in their mouth. Number 9, what should you not do for a person to have a seizure? Do not hold them down. Do not put anything in their mouth. What should you do for someone having a seizure? Protect them. Protect their head. Let it run its course. Any questions on 9 and 10, or 1 through 10? Good, we're moving right along. We're almost done. 11. What should you do for someone after the seizure? All right, so these is a couple steps. 1, you should check their breathing. 2, do a head-to-toe check. 1, check their breathing. 2, do a head-to-toe check. 3, if they're breathing, put them in the recovery position. If they're breathing, put them in the recovery position. 4, consider calling 911. And 5, if they're not breathing, you're doing CPR. And as the person comes to, we can go through sample and all that. So 11, 1, check for breathing. 2, do a head-to-toe check, because we're checking for injuries. 3, if they're breathing, put them in the recovery position. 4, if consider calling 911 if they haven't been called. And 5, if they're not breathing, you're doing CPR. Any questions on 1 through 11? 12. What is the common myth that we shouldn't do for a person having a seizure? We should not put anything in their mouth. Ever, 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 ever. Does anybody have any questions on 1 through 12? All right, so if you have 1 through 12 done, you can submit that and I'll check it. That is that. We have 4 more minutes. If you have any other questions on any other assignments or this one, I'll just be hanging out here.
Thank
Otherwise, have a good day.